Hey, I'm John Underhill. Thanks for joining. This is another quick video in the Bandit series at Exotic Blanks. And in this video, since watch part pens are so popular, I thought it'd be fun to use some extra watch parts to accessorize the Bandit pen set. Here's how I do it. Alright, if you haven't seen this, be sure to check out the other videos here in the Bandit series. But all of these disassemble the same. I take a 12.5 or 15 32nds drill bit, whichever you have. The 12.5 is the same size as the upper barrel of the Juniors or the Bandits. And what we're going to do is we're going to place this in the hole like so. Because this is tapered, it doesn't sink to the bottom. So it sits on top. And you can use whichever you have. A nail set, if you've got a punch set, with the different size rods, you can use that, or you can use an old nail, anything you have. And basically all you're going to do is place this over top of the rivet in the center. Hit it a few times with a hammer, and it comes right out. Now you're ready to build this. Now that we've got them apart, one thing to remember, hang on to this insert. Because if you're doing something that you want to sand this down and you mess one up, you'll have a backup. In the other videos, I used this actual stock piece, sanded it down a little thinner, and used it to build up a base. But in this video, we're going to just build this base up as it is. Because the watch parts have a little bit of a thickness to them, I want to make sure I have enough room to build CA over the top of them to encase them in there without cutting into them when I turn and smooth this off. So what I have here is a piece of black construction paper. I cut this out and I brushed a coat of clear nail polish over the top of it yesterday so that it was good and dry today. And the reason I do that is so that I don't have to worry about the air in the paper creating bubbles in my CA finish. So now I have to cut this out to fit this hole. So what I'm going to do is place this over the top and just press down on it. And as you can see, that leaves a perfect indentation for where I have to cut this out so that I can place it inside. You can also paint the inside of this black. That way, if you mess up and it's not perfectly round when you cut your paper out, you've still got a black background and it won't be noticeable. Okay, I've got the paper cut out, and I also painted the rim just around the edges black. And I just used some acrylic paint, some old outdated black acrylic paint. I let it dry, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the back of my paper with some glue dry accelerator. And I'm going to take a little bit of the glue and just put around the flat edge of this. I don't want to overload it, but I want enough to hold the paper, and we're going to lay that, we're going to try to lay that in there. There we go. I'm just going to take a Q-tip, or a toothpick, and push around the edges. That way it's all down nice. Now remember, I painted the top of this with nail polish, clear nail polish, before I cut it out. So as you can see now, the paper's not going to disform. It's not going to soak in that hole. It's not going to cave in on me. It's going to hold some structure, some shape while the glue dries, and it's already set. It's dry. And now I have a nice base, and you can see here's where the hole would have been, but it's all still nice and smooth. The nail polish will stop the glue from soaking through and dripping inside of this through that hole. So it just gives it a little more stability. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our pen part, or our watch parts that I've already selected, and I've cut the edge off of one of these. It was a little larger. I cut the edge off, and that will allow me to lay it closer to the side as I arrange these. I'm going to use a toothpick to place them in there, and I'm also going to just place a little bit of CA in there, but I'm going to use the toothpick. In fact, because this is still a little wet, I can use that to pick up, place them where I want them, around the edge. And the glue that's up there will hold these in place. There. I wanted to leave some space in between them. Now we're going to let that set up. The shine, it's hard to see. Everything is below this lip, and that's what I want. Nothing's sticking up. If you have to flatten them out, sometimes they get a little bow or bend in them, but these are nice and flat. What I did is I took this punch and I rolled over them to flatten them out a little bit on this large one because it had a little bit of a bow to it, but now it lays nice and flat. So this will allow me to build up this area now. And to do that, I'm going to use orange fill and finish, and all I'm going to do is lightly place them in areas. I don't want to go too drastic with it because I don't want to leave air bubbles in there. So I'm just going to take small amounts and dab around. I don't want to fill it all at once. Just going to move it around a little bit, make sure I get it in all the little holes and areas. Get the bubbles out. And if you feel like you got a little too much in there, you can always turn upside down and shake it a bit, and that'll get rid of the excess. But what we're going to do is, and that would look like this. Knock a little out. Now we're just going to lightly mist that with some glue dry, and I'm going to let that set up. I'm going to repeat this process 2 or 3 times until I get the depth I want, but the important thing is don't overload it all at once. You don't want to try to fill it. I don't like using the medium for this. I like using the thin because the air can get out a little quicker. If I were to use the medium, it can trap and hold air bubbles in there. And then when I turn them down, I have to worry about trying to get rid of them. So we're going to let this set, and then each layer I'm going to build up after say 20 or 30 minutes, and then I will let that harden for a few hours before I go to the next step of turning it smooth. Alright, so here it is finished now after I think 4 or 5 layers. Again, I applied them very thin, and I'd spray the glue dry in between the coats and let them dry completely before adding the second. And it was just a couple of drops. I didn't go crazy with, I didn't want a lot of depth in it, so I wanted to build it slowly so that there were no air bubbles and everything dried smooth and completely flat. So as you can see though, as this finishes, it's going to have a little bit of a ripple to it, and that's just natural from the glue drying. So now what we're going to do is let this cure for a couple of hours, and then we'll take it to the lathe and we'll smooth that all out. Alright, so here we have the finial cap now on the lathe. In the past video I used the jam chuck method, so this one I was just going to show you how I could use long jaws if I was very careful about not hitting the jaws and doing very light and small tool movement. So let's turn this down now. We'll zoom in so you can see the surface, and all we're going to do is we're going to clean up that top surface because I don't want it to be to a point or protruding past the metal ridge around the edge there, the rim. I want to make sure that it's flat, so when I press this in, I'm putting the pressure on the metal and not on the acrylic. And there we have it. Now I'm going to lightly sand that. I'm going to polish it up, and we'll be ready to assemble. Alright, so there's the finial, all sanded, polished, and ready for assembly. For more ideas on how you can customize your Bandit pen, be sure to check out the other videos in the Bandit pen series. Thanks for watching.